I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 44 of Movies Are Awesome, the show all about bears. My name is Nathan Puddle, and thank you so much for joining me today. Last week, I was talking about the Academy Awards. It was a little bit of a downer of an episode. I don't want to talk about that anymore. We'll liven things up. I also said I would try to go see 1917. I did not have an opportunity to check it out yet. Hopefully this week or the week after, maybe, I don't know. I'll eventually see it. At least I hope so. But I did have a chance to go see a movie called Weathering with You, and so that's what I'm going to talk about this week. I understand, though, that this movie is not going to be for everyone. It is an anime film. Some people just aren't into anime. For whatever reason, when I asked my wife, why don't you like anime that much? She's just like, everything about it bothers me. The way their eyes move and the way the animation looks. It just, for whatever reason, it just doesn't gel with her. And it's also like that with a lot of American audiences. But it's a form of animation, and I love animation unabashedly, as I've said multiple times on the show before. So anytime I have an opportunity to see something new in the realm of animation, something that I'm not as familiar with or wanting to become more well-versed in, I'm going to want to go see it. So Weathering with You is directed by Makoto Shinkai, and he is probably most well-known for directing the movie Your Name. Now, I have talked about Your Name on the show before multiple times. It was in my episode of Under the Radar movies. I also talked about it in my best movies of the decade, just because it is spectacular, it is beautiful, it is emotional. It just has so much going on for it that when it was announced that this is his new movie, Weathering with You, is coming out, I really wanted to get an opportunity to see it. I think a lot of people have seen this movie already. I think in the States it came out a while ago, or at least it was at some kind of film festivals, but like reviews for this movie have been out for a while. But for myself, it only came to my city just this past week. It was only playing in 2 theaters in the entire city. So me and one of my friends, we got in the car together, carpooled, drove to the other end of the city so that we could watch Weathering with You. As always with my reviews, I'm gonna start with non-spoilers first and then get into spoilers a little bit later. I'll, of course, give a warning before we start talking about that. So why don't I give you a brief kind of rundown of what the story is without giving too much away. So our main character here, Morishima, I'm very poor at pronouncing some of these names here. So Morishima is a 16-year-old boy. He's a runaway. He runs away to Tokyo, and he's trying to get a job, earn some money, make a living. We don't really know where he's from or what, why he ran away. We just know that he did. And the movie actually doesn't really elaborate on this, and that's not something that's a huge focus of the movie, is the fact that he's a runaway. So I think it's fine that we don't really get those gaps filled in. Obviously, I would like to know what kind of a life that he lived before, what caused him to run away. But it's not central to the plot at all. It's more what happens as a result of his running away that's more important to the story. So when he's trying to live in Tokyo, he meets this girl named Amano, something like that. I'm sorry, I am very bad at pronouncing these names. But he meets this girl, and she is a sunshine girl. And basically what that means is she has the power to make the rain go away and the sun come out. And that's, it's a very basic name. Nothing wrong with that. And so they go into business together, hiring her out, because for whatever reason, it's really, really rainy in Tokyo. It rains for weeks at a time. The sun never comes out. So you can hire her, and she will come to wherever in Tokyo it is that you're having, whether an event or it's your wedding and you're wanting it to be nice outside. She'll pray the rain away, the sun will come out, and then you give them money. And that's basically the premise of this movie, and it's about their relationship as they're kind of growing this business. There are a few side plots going on as well, but it's mostly about these two characters of Morishima and Amano and their kind of budding romance. They're both very young characters, and it's just their journey through the film. Now, like I said before, this is directed by Makoto Shinkai, and this is his fourth feature film that he's directed. He's done a bunch of shorts. I have only seen Your Name. There are a couple of other ones. I guess the other ones are really dour and kind of depressing and sad and take themselves very seriously. I haven't had a chance to watch them yet, though. Maybe I'll try to get them from the library in the next little while and check them out. But my list of movies to watch is ever growing, and it seems like my list of non-movie things is also ever growing. So I always have lots of things to do and no time to watch movies, at least not as much time as I would like to be able to dedicate to films. So I haven't seen as many of his movies as I would like to be able to say that I have, but that's fine. I've seen Your Name, and that movie is, that movie enough is just enough for me to be on board with whatever Makoto Shinkai is doing. If he's on board a project, I'm in, because Your Name is just absolutely brilliant. So when Weathering with You was announced, I was like, yeah, I'm in. Watched the trailer, and that's all I needed. Now, I want to talk a little bit about subs versus dubs. Now, this is a big thing in the anime fan community. Now, subs is in reference to subtitles. So do you watch the movie in Japanese with English subtitles, or do you watch a dubbed version where American actors have been hired to re-say all of the characters' lines in English, and you listen to an English track and you don't have to read subtitles? So there's a lot of debate on this, and I want to weigh in on it just really quickly here. Basically, where the argument comes down to is you have these anime purists who say you need to listen to the whether it's an anime movie or series in its original Japanese and read the subtitles, because that is the purest way to ingest the content, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. So their side of the argument is that it's a degradation of the final product is if you re-record the original actors' voices. And on the dub side, some people are just like, hey, I don't want to read subtitles. And that's kind of more where I fall on the spectrum. I prefer to watch dubs, and not because I don't like reading or anything like that. I actually enjoy reading quite a bit, but I think overall, having to constantly read the subtitles, especially when dialogue is flying really fast between characters, which is often the case in anime, I feel that I need to be able to hear it instead of reading it, because anime is such a visual medium that if I'm always reading the subtitles, I'm missing out on the visual splendor, especially with a movie like Your Name and with Weathering with You. Both of these movies are absolutely stunning and beautiful, and I love just being able to look at the artistry of it without having to worry that I'm missing out on parts of the plot because I have to read it. So for myself, I like to read dubs. I will watch subtitled versions as well, but I do mostly lean towards dubs myself. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are just really, really taken aback with that, but I'm not a purist. I love movies, and if this is an option of me to enjoy the movie, obviously, if the directors and stuff felt that having a dubbed version would take away from the overall experience, they probably wouldn't do it. Or maybe if they thought it wouldn't make them money. But it does make them money, because that's the version I went to go see. Actually, while we were at the theater, the lady who was ripping our tickets was saying that the show that we were going to is the only one that wasn't completely sold out, and we were going to the only dubbed version. The rest were all subtitled. So that just goes to show that subtitle is way more popular, and people like to go more in that direction. For myself, I am a dubbed person. But I'm going to put that argument aside, and let's talk about the merits of the movie itself. So right off the bat, I got to talk about, I've already mentioned it, the beautiful, beautiful animation. This movie is just gorgeous to look at. There's lots of rain. I wrote in my notes here just so much rain. Most of this movie, it's raining in Tokyo. almost all of it, except for when the Sunshine Girl comes out and she says her little prayer and the clouds go away and the sun comes out. But even with all of the rain going on, and I think that that's part of what makes this movie so visually appealing, is it's something different that we don't get a whole lot. And because we get so much rain, the few bits that we do get of sunshine are all the more beautiful and stunning because it's contrasted to the dourness of the rain. And so I really like that dichotomy that we have there, comparing the drabness of the rain to the splendor of the sun, but also finding beauty in each one, and just the camera movements and the way that the frames are set up. I really like it. I think that overall it might be the strongest aspect of this movie, of just how good it looks. Now, one thing that this movie also really has going for it is its sense of humor. It is much funnier than Your Name, and I think the humor is really well-timed and well-placed, and it has a good balance between the humor and the drama of the story. I don't feel that the humor is ever taking away from any kind of drama. Some of the jokes are maybe a little childish, or a little more juvenile, I guess maybe is a better way of saying it. Not childish, but juvenile, I think, is a better word. So sometimes I think the jokes don't land as well, but for the most part, I feel it really works. There's a lot of really good bits with a cat. This cat is a stray that Marishima takes in and feeds and domesticates it, and there's a lot of really good humor around this cat. And now, I'm not a pet person myself, so there's other people who like animals a lot more than I do, who will connect with this cat a lot more than me, and probably find the cat's humor just above and beyond what I feel the cat's humor is. So even someone like myself, who's not really into animals, can still find the humor and enjoyment that this cat has to offer. And I'm sure that most of the other people on the planet will enjoy this cat even more than me. I do believe they named the cat Rain, just because it rains all the time, and they found the cat in the rain. So we've got the cat named Rain, and it's funny. It's a good cat. And it doesn't even really do that much to be funny. It's very subtle situational humor, and I am a big fan of situational humor as opposed to just telling jokes. Like, if people are just caught in an awkward situation, I find that way funnier than someone telling a joke. A great example of this is the television show The Office. If you've ever watched that show is almost all cringy, awkward situations. There are jokes that are told, but it's mostly comedy through these characters' experiences. And my favorite episode of the show The Office is called The Dinner Party, and Michael Scott invites some people from the office over to him and his girlfriend's house, and they have dinner, and it's just so cringy, but at the same time it's hilarious, and I just love it. That's my favorite episode of the whole show. I think it's really strong in its situational humor, and I think that that's where Weathering with You also really has its strengths, is that the humor really fits what the characters are doing at the time, and that's why it works. I think it's better than when you just have people saying quips and just trying to be really witty and stuff like that. That's kind of the weakness of the Marvel films, where they're in a big battle and then it's like, oh yeah, I see you're copying my beard, ha ha ha. And while I do find that funny, I think it's good for the Marvel brand, it doesn't always work. And situational humor is just top notch for me. I like when a script is clever in its jokes, yes, but also in the scene as a whole and how everything is playing out. I should do an episode on my favorite comedies one day. I want to talk about my favorite comedy right now just because it's so clever, but we'll save that for another episode. I'm not gonna get myself on too many tangents here. So beautiful animation, good humor. I also really like the characters in Weathering with You. These main two characters of Morishima and Amano, they are really well fleshed out. We really understand who they are, even without knowing their backgrounds. Throughout most of the movie, both of these characters' backgrounds are a mystery, but we know but we know pretty much everything there is to know about them. We know what their interests are, we know what their goals are for the future, we know how they feel about each other, but at the same time, how they're awkward around each other and not really wanting to reveal certain things to the other person just because they're scared. They're young kids and they don't want to be vulnerable. Later in the movie, they learn to be a little more vulnerable. And I think that's what really captures these characters here and what really develops them is that through their vulnerability, they can really develop and become a little bit stronger, a little more confident around each other. And I think it's great. I think that's enough of non-spoilers though. So I'm going to move into spoilers and talk about some of the big plot points that happen in the movie. So if you plan on seeing Weathering with You and you don't want to be wrecked on it, you can stop now, but I do say this movie is pretty good. I recommend it. It's not as good as Your Name, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. So spoilers are going to start right now, and I'm going to talk about the main thing that happens here. And I think I'm going to start off by saying that the characters, our main characters, especially Morishima, is very selfish. Selfish to the point that I find it frustrating because he makes a decision here. The decision to save Amano and bring her back to Earth after she sacrifices herself because of the supernatural element of this movie. She has to be sacrificed in order to make the rain stop. So she sacrifices herself. And then Morishima ends up in the sky world and takes her back to Earth because he can't live without her, knowing that if he takes her back, the rain is never going to stop. So he takes her back, and then it just never stops raining, and Tokyo becomes completely flooded and almost like uninhabitable. Like, because of his decision, so many people have lost their homes. I'm sure a lot of people have died in the flooding and the disasters. Like, it's just such a selfish thing to do. And I just can't believe that someone would do that. You know, like I guess on some point I can believe it because like your love for the other person transcends everything else and you would do anything for this person. But like look at the destruction that it caused. The fact that just like bringing her back, and that's all it did. They could have just had like a nice simple goodbye and her sacrifice could have meant something, but no, he goes off to the sky world. I think there's a name for it, but I don't remember. Brings her back, and now her sacrifice doesn't mean anything, and just like there's nothing to do in Tokyo now because it's full of water. And then he gets imprisoned, and then it jumps forward 3 years because he was underage, so he was like under house arrest. He was taken back home. We don't really know where that is. Taken back home, and then he finally goes and is reunited with her 3 years later. And like it was just such a horrible decision to make. And that I think that's all I can really say about it. I'm sorry if you haven't seen the movie and you're listening to the spoiler section anyway, because whenever I go into the spoiler section, I treat this section as if you've already seen the movie. So I'm more having a discussion with you, not thinking I have to explain the events of what happened in the movie. So I'm adding a little bit of explanations here and there, but for the most part, I'm treating it as if you've already seen the film. So if you haven't, I'm sorry if it just sounds like I'm talking about random things, but this is just how I'm choosing to treat the spoiler section. Why would he do that? I don't understand. And I still really enjoy the movie and I like him as a character, but like this one decision that he made cost so many people so much. And like it doesn't even seem like he has very much remorse for it. And maybe after the events of the movie he works on like rebuilding Tokyo, because the rain stops at the end somehow, and I don't really know how. I think Amano just like prays the rain away for a little bit. But why would she just start doing it then, unless she was waiting for him to come back to Tokyo? Because I think if she is still on Earth, if she uses her power, she's still like turning into water. I don't know about that for sure. I'm not 100% on it, but I think that just overall, it was like it seems like it would be a tough decision to make, but like she had already sacrificed herself. Like I guess maybe if they would have gotten a goodbye and he would have had a little bit of closure, maybe Marishima would have made a different decision. But I just don't know, and I'd like to think that in a similar situation, I would let the sacrifice happen in order to save all of these people's homes and lives. But maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I don't care about like anybody else outside myself and my wife, for example. Like if she was some sunshine girl who sacrificed herself to the sky world, maybe I would have let my city drown in order to save her. I don't know actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it is a tougher decision than I'm giving it credit. Huh. Well, I'm gonna move on though. There are a couple other points I want to make here. There are some cameos from the characters from Your Name. We've got both Taki and Mitsuha make appearances, and everyone in the theater when they showed up. Now they're not together, so like at the brief spoilers for Your Name, but they end up together at the end. But this movie takes place before they end up together. So at the end of Your Name, there's a bit of a time jump, and this takes place during that time jump. So the characters that we get are not a couple at the time. So Taki shows up. He's with his grandma because his grandma had hired Amano to make the sun come out. So he's there, and he's like, "I cut some watermelon for everybody. Like, have a snack." And that was pretty fun. And like these characters have very distinct looks, so like there's no mistaking that that's who they are, even though the characters are not mentioned by name in the movie. But they're there, 100%. It's them. And then our main character, Marishima, is doing some jewelry shopping for this girl that he likes, and Mitsuha is working at the shop and is helping him find the perfect piece of jewelry for this girl. And they were just such well-placed cameos. Like, I really liked it a lot. It didn't feel forced. It was just a really nice thing that the director did for fans of Your Name, that like these two stories, while both fantastical, are taking place in the same world, but they're fantastical in different ways. In Your Name, it's a like body switching movie, and this one it's a girl can control the weather story. That's what it is. So I guess I actually don't have a ton in the spoiler section to talk about here, and I think that's because the story wasn't as intricate as I expected it to be. So Your Name, like, its storytelling is phenomenal. It's absolutely wonderful, and its world building is amazing. And Weathering with You is also very strong, but it's not as strong, and it's not as intricate, and it doesn't have like this big kind of revelation that we have in Your Name. Like there's something going on in that movie that when it's revealed to you, you're like, what on earth? And Weathering with You doesn't have that. So I guess because I was kind of going into the movie expecting this big reveal to kind of take place, I was a little bit let down when that didn't quite happen. Like what's going on with the weather is kind of upfront and shown to the audience kind of right off the bat, and there are little things here and there that are revealed throughout the story, but nothing really game changing that like changes how you look at the entire film. So I think because of that, I was a little let down by the movie. I still think it's very good and I like it a lot. I think it's very similar to when I went to go watch Interstellar and I expected it to be on the same level as Inception, and it's not at all. The only difference here is I like Weathering with You, and I think Interstellar is a bad movie. So that's what I have to say there. It is still worth watching. I like it quite a bit. But that's I think all I have to say about Weathering with You. It's the first movie I saw of this year of 2020. I don't have a whole lot of new movies coming out this year. I'm hearing very horrible things about Dolittle. I'm not going to go see it. I'm still wanting to go see 1917. Knives Out is still playing. Maybe I'll go see Knives Out again. That movie's pretty good. But I'm wondering, have you seen Weathering with You? Did you see it months ago and I'm only just getting on board? I would love to know what you think about the movie. You can reach out to me on social media. You can find me on Twitter at PodleNathan and on Instagram at Podle Productions. If you haven't done so, please consider subscribing to the show. I release new episodes every Friday. You can find me on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play, and a whole bunch of other places. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. And if you have nothing else to do, go watch more movies.